Today, I'd like to talk with you about criticism and encouragement. We've all heard of constructive criticism, but as someone who has hired people, and at one time at a church, we hired dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and I didn't oversee all of them directly, but definitely had a lot of influence on the HR culture of what was going on, and even was sent by my church out to do some HR training. And also, I'm very familiar with some of the Dale Carnegie stuff. And I'd like to turn, if you would, to 2 Timothy chapter 1. 2 Timothy chapter 1, and talk about the importance of encouragement and the dangers of criticism. I think that a lot of people think that their criticism of others, whether or not the other person is present, is constructive. But I think that the proof in the pudding there, the litmus test of whether or not it's really constructive criticism, is whether or not the other person hears it as constructive. Just because you say it and you intend it to be constructive doesn't mean it is constructive. It has to be received constructively. And getting it heard is so much more important than getting it said. And once in a while, we do have to correct people, but it's usually not very effective, even in the best of cases, because our relationships with people that we supervise are complex. And encouragement just helps so much more, because I've found as a pastor that people are good enough at beating themselves up. We don't need to help them with that. People are very critical of themselves, and to lay more weight on that burden generally creates a non-motivated environment, and a non-motivated environment creates poor performance. And so I think it's so important always to err on the side of encouragement. Even when we're trying to change behavior, we encourage the correct behavior from people, from our children, from our coworkers, from people that we coach, people that we teach. It's just really, really important. And I think that there's no better example of that than in Timothy, the books of Timothy, which are actually written by Paul, of course, to Timothy. That's the important thing. These are not written by Timothy, and Timothy was a bit of a weenie. He really was. He needed a lot of encouragement, and he needed a lot of backbone, and he was very young, and people didn't respect him. And Paul put a lot of responsibility on him. He would send him off and say, "Hey, go take care of this," and on a business trip, go travel out there and get on a jet. Well, they didn't have jets back then, but get on a jet and take off and go straighten out this other branch office. So he would be sent out to take care of these churches, and often would not feel up to the task, as many of us did when we were young. Didn't feel up to the task that other people were giving us. And I just love what Paul writes here. He writes here in verse 5. This is 2 Timothy 1, verse 5. "I know that you sincerely trust the Lord." Once again, affirming that he trusts the Lord. Not saying you need to trust him more. Affirming that trust that's there and hoping it will grow. Affirming that trust. I know that you sincerely trust the Lord, for you have the faith of your mother Eunice and your grandmother Lois. This is why I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you, when I affirmed you by laying hands on you. And rather than saying you're not living up to your potential, which nobody wants to hear, and Timothy probably wasn't living up to his potential, it says fan into flame that trust, that gift was there. And that sounds so much better than the flame is not high enough. Fan into flame the gift that I imparted upon you when I laid hands on you, which was a sign of my approval and blessing of you. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline, and some versions say, and a sound mind. And Timothy wasn't really exhibiting these things, but Paul says you can grow into them. It's just so beautifully put. So if you get a chance to either criticize or encourage, I would err on the side of encouraging. And do it in such a way. Here Paul, in a way, is correcting Timothy, but he's correcting Timothy in a way that Timothy is going to walk away feeling great. Listen to this one more time. This is why I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Now, you can't go wrong with that. Take those encouraging words, encourage someone else today. You're going to get an opportunity, so give it a shot, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.